Good morning. Since everyone is already here, we should get started. Miss Romero, please do the roll call.
Good morning. As I call the name of each member, kindly click the raise hand button below. Mr. Bon Gerard Luis, Vice President of Finance and Administration, Ms. Joanne Arenas, Finance Director, Ms. Ira Abrera, Procurement and Sourcing Director, and I am lovely Nicole Romero, Administration Director. I will be presenting the agenda for today's meeting.
So our agenda today is financial statements, financial forecast, permits and licenses, process updates, and goals for the upcoming year. Let's proceed with the first agenda, financial statements. Ms. Arenas, please start with your presentation.
Yes, Miss President. Ms. Abrera will help me in presenting the financial statements and financial forecast. Ms. Romero, next slide please. This is our balance sheet for the year ended in December 31, 2022. As you can see, our current asset is 92.65 million in value and our long-term assets or non-current assets is currently at 109.47 million, while our liabilities is 54.73 million and our equity is 147.39 million. Next slide, please.
Our liability is 54.73 million and equity is 147.39 million. So our debt to equity ratio is 0.37 or 37%. In general, many investors and banks look for a company with debt to equity ratio between 0.3 or 30% to 0.6 or 60%. With our 0.37 or 37% debt to equity ratio, we can easily borrow additional capital from banks. And from a pure risk perspective of an investor, our ratio is considered good because that some investor may have interest to invest in our company.
That's good to hear, Miss Abrera.
Ms. Romero, next slide please.
As you can see in the slide, it is the breakdown of our assets. 92.65 million is the total current assets and 109.4 million with a total of 202.12 million. We have approximately 37 million of working capital that we can use for the expansion of our business. As planned, we will be establishing new branches of Gawi Lab in various areas across the National Capital Region.
Great, Miss Arenas.
Next slide, please.
In this slide is the categorized breakdown of our liabilities. Our total current liabilities is 42.36 million, whereas 28.3 million are account payables and 14.06 million are revolving credits, while our total long-term liabilities is 42.37 million, whereas 16.51 million are debt securities and 25.86 million are mortgage loans. Our liabilities to asset ratio is 27%, which means that 27% of the company is debt. Next slide, please.
This is the yearly comparison of our revenue. As you can see, our revenue for this year has drastically dropped because of the viral issue with our HR department. That is why customers are boycotting our business, which greatly affects our revenue. From 123,960,000 of revenue last year, and this year is only 18,100,000. So we have lost 43,860,000 this year. Next slide, please.
In this slide, you can see the yearly comparison of net profit. Since our revenue has drastically dropped this year, it also affects our net profit. Last year, we have earned 49,410,000, while this year we only have 35,476,000. Because of that, we have a loss of 13,934,000 if the issue with the HR department has not been resolved immediately. Our revenue and net profit will continue to decrease.
I will schedule a meeting with the HR director to inform her about the great loss that we have encountered. Continue, Ms. Arenas.
Our second agenda is about financial forecast. This slide shows the financial projection for the next 5 years. If the issue with the HR department has been resolved, we are projecting that we will have a 200 million of revenue, 75 million of expenses, and 125 million of net profit. For year 2024, 276 million of revenue, 85 million of expenses, and 191 million of net profit. For year 2025, 349 million of revenue, 115 million of expenses, and 234 million of net profit. For year 2026, we are projecting 398 million of revenue, 150 million of expenses, and 248 million of net profit. Lastly, for year 2027, 460 million of revenue, 193 million of expenses, and 267 million of net profit. That is our financial forecast for the next 5 years.
Let's proceed with the third agenda, permits and licenses. What are the updates on this, Ms. Romero?
Still processing some requirements for permits and license of three branches of Quezon City. My admin assistant and liaison officer are teaming together to accomplish all necessary requirements.
So, are you almost done with acquiring those requirements?
Yes, Miss President. There are still some requirements that we need to submit at Municipal Hall, and we are just waiting for the approval of the sanitary permit and the license to operate, but all in all, we almost done.
Great, Mr. Romero. Let's move on to the next agenda, process updates.
Just want to have your approval, Ms. President and Mr. Vice President, about our plan to update the process and procurement. We wanted to purchase the Purify software, which is a cloud-based software that centralizes the process and optimize spending. We can easily track, manage, and control spending easily.
How much is that software?
It costs 30,000 sir for a fully customized software.
How about SAP, or System Application and Products? It also has centralized system that enables every department to access and share common data. With SAP software, we will not needing a printed requisition form to submit procurement department because we can directly request supplies or equipment through SAP software. And it's much cheaper than a Procurify software.
Okay, Ms. Abera, submit a proposal on the Procurify and SAP and I will review it before I give my approval on this.
Noted, sir.
For our last agenda, goals for the upcoming year, Mr. Luis and I come up with the plans for the next year.
Our goals for the upcoming year are profit maximization, proper mobilization, high efficiency, and balanced structure. First is profit maximization. This is our top priority. We should ensure that outcomes related to business performance are profitable. To maximize profit, Optimum utilization of limited resources should be ensured and costs are reduced to minimum.
Our second goal is proper mobilization. We need to thoroughly evaluate and make vital decisions on the allocation and utilization of various funds, whether it is shares, products, or investing in small companies. All the critical factors must be considered before investing. Any suggestions you would like to add, Tim?
We should also develop a resource mobilization plan to ensure that there is a clear systematic and will be coordinate approach to acquiring, utilizing, managing, and monitoring the resource in order to ensure sustainable resource ability for implementation of project.
That's a great idea, Mr. Goal for the next year is high efficiency, proper distribution of finances or funds to all the departments, considering the resources and work involved increases the organization's efficiency as a whole. Any idea would you like to add, Tim?
We should identify and address the productivity killers. The first step towards achieving team efficiency is to identify the drawbacks that hold our people from being productive. Some of these drawbacks are manual data error, slow process, and mismanagement of information. In order to reduce these drawbacks, we should automate manual processes, which will save time and effort while improving efficiency.
That's great, Ms. Abrera. For our last goal, mitigating risk, we all know that uncertainty and threats that we may face in the next coming year. In order to lessen the effects of these threats, we should prepare a risk mitigation plan or strategy. Any suggestions, Tim?
I would like to suggest that we should adopt the four strategy of risk management, which are risk avoidance, risk reduction, risk transferring, and risk acceptance. The first strategy is risk avoidance. This will help reduce the possibility of potential risks by avoiding risky projects altogether. Second is risk reduction. This strategy helps reduce the severity of potential risk by taking steps to mitigate the effects of those risks. Third is risk transferring. This strategy helps reduce exposure to the potential risk by transferring those risks to another party. Lastly, risk acceptance. This strategy helps accept the potential risks associated with a project and take steps to plan for those risks.
That's a good idea, Ms. Arenas. So that is the end of our meeting agenda today. Is there anyone who would like to add any suggestions or ideas?
None, sir.
None, sir. Before we end, let me just summarize the main points that have been discussed. First is, even though our revenue and net income has drastically decreased, our working capital is still enough to finance our growth plan for 2023, approval on financial forecast, application and product software, and lastly, the successful planning of goal for upcoming year.
If anyone else has nothing to add, then I will wrap this up. I declare the meeting is adjourned.